The forebrain is known as the largest and most important part of the brain. It is the division of the brain that is responsible for a variety of functions, including receiving and processing sensory information, thinking, perceiving, producing, and understanding language, and also controlling motor function. The forebrain is a collection of upper-level structures that include the hypothalamus, thalamus, and cerebrum. Together with other structures, the forebrain regulates complex cognitive processes such as learning, memory, perception, as well as various aspects of emotion and personality. The first part of the forebrain is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus has a vital role in maintaining the body's internal environment or the homeostasis, and it takes part in many aspects of our behavior. The main function of hypothalamus includes regulating the release of hormones from various glands in the body and influencing behaviors associated with the basic biological needs such as hunger, thirst, and sleep. It is also involved in emotions such as fear, anger, and being part of the limbic system. The second part of the forebrain is the thalamus. The thalamus filters information from all sense receptor sites except the nose, then passes it to the relevant areas of the brain for further processing. Basically, sense organs like the eyes send information to the thalamus, which sends that information to the correct part of the brain to be interpreted. For example, if you're in danger, good hearing would probably be interpreted as more important than the taste in your mouth, and therefore the thalamus would put emphasis on interpreting information from the ears rather than the tongue. The third part of the forebrain is the cerebrum. The cerebrum occupies most of the forebrain and is above and in front of the cerebellum. The cerebrum consists of the outer cerebral cortex and masses of neural tissue where neurons receive and process incoming and outgoing information. It is primarily responsible for almost everything we consciously think, feel, and do. The cerebrum and the cerebral cortex is divided into two cerebral hemispheres, one on the left and one on the right. Between the two halves, there is a narrow gap that runs from the front and to the back called the longitudinal fissure. Both cerebral hemispheres are still connected by the corpus callosum, which allows information exchange between two hemispheres. The midbrain is the topmost part of the brainstem, the connection central between the brain and the spinal cord. There are three main parts of the midbrain: the colliculi, the tegmentum, and the cerebral peduncles.
Of the 12 cranial nerves, 2 thread directly from the midbrain, the oculomotor and trochlear nerves responsible for eye and eyelid movement.
The midbrain is the narrow part of the brain that connects the forebrain to the hindbrain. It serves as a vital connection to the other major parts of the brain. The narrow cavity of the midbrain is the cerebral aqueduct, which connects the third and fourth ventricle. The tectum is the part of the midbrain posterior to the cerebral aqueduct. Its functions are for auditory and visual processing. The colliculi. It is situated at the top of the midbrain, separated into superior and inferior colliculus. The superior colliculus works on a primary visual signals before it is passed on to the occipital lobe at the back of the head. The inferior colliculus work on a primary auditory signals before it is passed through the thalamus to the main auditory processing center in the cortex. The colliculi are deeply placed between the cerebellum and the cerebral hemispheres. The pineal body is a small glandular structure that lies between the superior colliculi. The main function of the pineal gland is to receive and convey information about the current light-dark cycle from the environment and consequently produce and secrete melatonin cyclically at night or dark period. The tegmentum. The tegmentum stretches down the length of the brainstem, but a portion of it forms a part of the midbrain. It contains two areas named after specific colors. The iron-rich red nucleus is involved in the coordination of movements. The periodactyl gray is a dense region of gray matter and is involved in suppressing pain. The tegmentum in the midbrain also contains connections that play a role in keeping us alert. Tracts made up of neurons that connect the cerebral hemispheres to the cerebellum and a posterior part, the tegmentum, by the substantia nigra. In between these bundles and the tegmentum is a layer called the substantia nigra, a darkly pigmented cluster of neurons with cells containing melanin that make the neurotransmitter dopamine. This layer of neurons is an important relay station of nerve signals of the CNS system that coordinate our movements. This area is specifically damaged in Parkinson's disease. The cerebral peduncles, two literal halves of the midbrain. Each of these is divided into an anterior part, the crus cerebri. The back of the midbrain contains a pair of large nerve fiber bundles that connect the rest of the brainstem to the forebrain. These cerebral peduncles are the main highway for signals that need to be transported for the cortex to the other part of the central nervous system or the CNS and are especially important for body coordination. The hindbrain is one of the three major regions of our brain located at the lower back part of the brain. It includes most of the brainstem and a dense coral-shaped structure called the cerebellar. It is one of the most important structures of the central nervous system because it connects the brain to the spinal cord and it coordinates many vital functions such as breathing and heartbeat. There are three main parts of the hindbrain: the pons, cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. Most of the 12 cranial nerves are found in the hindbrain. Pons. The pons gets its name from the Latin word for bridge, and it connects the rest of the brainstem to the cerebral cortex. Bulbous in shape, it sits right underneath the midbrain and serves as a coordination center for signals and communications that flow between the two brain hemispheres and the spinal cord. 4 cranial nerves are found in the pons. The trigeminal nerve coordinates chewing and carries sensory information from the face and the head. The abducens nerve helps coordinate eye movement. The facial nerve coordinates movement and sensation in the face. The vestibulocochlear nerve processes sounds and helps us maintain balance. Behind the pons and the rest of the brainstem sits a structure called the cerebellum. It is a Latin word for little brain. In cross-section, this part looks like a layered wrinkly coral. Just like the cortex, it has two hemispheres with a dense layer of gray matter surrounding an inner region of white matter. It also contains special neurons called Purkinje cells, capable for processing many signals at once due to their highly complex dendrite branches. The cerebellum coordinates our sensations with responses from our muscles, enabling most of our voluntary movements. It also processes nerve impulses from the inner ear and coordinates them with muscle movement, thus helping us maintain balance and posture. Medulla oblongata. The lower part of both the brainstem and the overall hindbrain is the medulla oblongata, where the brain transitions to the spinal cord. It is only about 3 centimeters long, but the medulla is an indispensable nerve tract which contains the control centers of our autonomic vital functions such as heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing, and many involuntary reflexes such as swallowing and sneezing. The medulla contains both white and gray matter, and 4 cranial nerves stem from this region. Hypoglossal nerve, which controls tongue movements and muscles involved in our speech. The accessory nerve, which coordinates head and neck movements. The glastropharyngeal nerve, which coordinates some taste sensations and mouth movements. The vagus nerve, which controls mouth movements, voice, and gag reflex.